Welcome into the Ravens Rundown, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Happy to have you with us. Today's show is sponsored by Mint Mobile. Join America's largest 5G network with plans starting at just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/chatsports. On today's show, we have some big roster moves to go over for your Baltimore Ravens, including those involving Gus Edwards, as well as cuts to narrow the roster down to 80 players. We'll tell you about all of those and more in just one moment. Before we get to that, though, big week for the Ravens as they take on the Washington Commanders, and it's a battle for DMV supremacy. So, with that, like today's video, if you believe that the Baltimore Ravens are the best team in the DMV. We begin with Gus Edwards. News coming out this afternoon that the Baltimore Ravens running back will miss at least the first 4 games of the 2022 NFL season after being placed on the PUP list. Edwards was hopeful that he would be back for the start of this year, but it doesn't look like that he's quite ready to go. So with that said, here is what the Ravens running back room looks like as of right now. JK Dobbins, your number 1 running back. Gus Edwards was expected to split time with Dobbins. Now Mike Davis, who has started the last 2 preseason games, he'll certainly have his name called upon a lot. The free agent addition from the Atlanta Falcons. Well, Tyler Badie, the day 3 selection out of Missouri. We've seen him a lot on special teams. There was already good feeling that he would make this roster. But now it seems to be that Justice Hill, who was a borderline 53-man roster player or not, will likely make the roster at the end of the day for the Baltimore Ravens to begin the season with the uncertainty involving Gus Edwards. So with that, you may be asking, what does this all mean for the Ravens now? Well, what time is it? It's J.K. Dobbins time. J.K. Dobbins, man, everything that we've heard about is that he feels 100% that his injury progression, as opposed to Gus Edwards, came along really nicely, that he was cleared, he's good to go on all fronts, and that he feels as good as ever. The last time we saw J.K. Dobbins on the football field back in 2020, he was terrific. 134 carries, 805 yards, average of 6 yards per carry, and 9 touchdowns, and that was splitting the load with Gus Edwards. Now, J.K. Dobbins, you would have to think, is going to take on a much larger role, leading this running back room going forward. Now, yes, the Ravens had a plethora of issues at the running back position last year, but I got to tell you, with what they did to bring in Mike Davis and with what they have there with Tyler Badie and Justice Hill, I'm not worried about Gus Edwards' return personally. I'm glad that they're being patient with this and give him the time back to get there at full speed. So my concern level, not too high, personally. How about you, though? How worried are you about Gus Edwards? Put it in the comment section where your worry is about this situation for Gus and for the Ravens running back room. Type 1 through 10 in the comments section. You might have an ad break. If so, get your votes in and let us know. 1 through 10 where your level of concern is for the Ravens without Gus Edwards going forward. So, with that, the Ravens made a few more roster moves as well to get the roster down to 80. The final cuts before the 53-man roster comes out next week. And here's where they stand right now. The Ravens moved on from 3 wide receivers. Jaylon Moore, Slade Bolden, Bailey Gaither, all gone. Bolden was an injury waiver. Meanwhile, Diego Fagot is moved on from at the inside linebacker spot, Jaryd Jones-Smith at offensive tackle. And the big takeaway so far from today's moves is what they did at the receiver spot. You bring in Demarcus Robinson last week, and now moving on from 3 wide receivers, they are really narrowing things down in this wide receiver room, a room that has much been discussed here on this show and many other Ravens shows around the country about what they would do, transitioning from Hollywood Brown and Sammy Watkins. And now it seems like that the Ravens are going this direction of they have found out the haves and the have-nots already moving on from 3 receivers, the big standout there. So, with that said, grade the Ravens roster moves from putting Gus Edwards on the PUP list to the decisions they made with the roster cuts and everything in between. How would you grade what the Ravens did today? Type A, B, C, D, or F in the comments section. Let me know what you think of what Harbaugh and company put together for this Ravens roster for these moves to get to 80 players. Today's show is sponsored by Mint Mobile, which is on America's largest 5G network. You can switch service seamlessly between 5G and 4G LTE, whichever is strongest. It's a great deal, folks. Plans starting at just $15 a month. You don't want to miss out on this opportunity that Mint Mobile is offering. Ryan Reynolds, he owns the company. He is in a lot of great movies, including The Proposal, a personal favorite of my own. And you know what? If Ryan Reynolds can make great movies, then he can make great cell phone service just for you, folks. Look, times are tough. We're all trying to cut around some budgets. I mean, we're trying to make cuts like the Ravens did with their roster today. So why not start saving on your cell phone bill right now with Mint Mobile? MintMobile.com/chatsports. Start saving today with plans starting at just $15 a month. So let's look at these one by one. Let's start with the receiver moves, what this means for the Ravens going forward, moving on from Moore, Bolden, and Gaither. Looking at the receiver depth chart for the Baltimore Ravens of what they've done at this spot now. Here is what things look like. As you can see, Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, your top 3 receivers there. Demarcus Robinson right now slides in borderline 5, 6, 4, that range. He and Tyler Wallace, Victor, Shamar Bridges. It's going to be very competitive for those final receiver spots on the depth chart. It's really anybody's ball game. And you have a few days till this preseason game. It's going to be pivotal for those roster spots. Nothing is guaranteed for those guys. Once you go past the first 3 receivers of this bunch for the Ravens, it's anyone's guess of what's going to happen for those final couple of roster spots and what the Ravens ultimately do of the number of wide receivers they keep. So we'll keep tabs on that one for sure. You know we will right here on the Ravens Rundown, as we're going to be covering this team each and every day here on the channel. And here's the thing. Here's the thing, folks. When it comes to the roster moves or free agency, trades, anything in between, we have you covered here on the Ravens Rundown. We're getting close to 7,000 subscribers, but we got to have your help to get there. I cannot create enough YouTube accounts to get us to 7,000 subscribers on my own. I need you to get us there. So make sure you're subscribed now. Tell all your friends. Make sure they're subscribed as well. YouTube.com/RavensTV. Turn on notifications as well so you never miss a moment of the Ravens Rundown by Chat Sports. All right, let's look at the linebacker spot now. They make the move, moving on from Diego Fagot, and now things don't really change a whole lot at the linebacker and edge spots for the Ravens. As you can see there, things stay pretty much the same. This was not a huge deal for the Ravens to move on here. What's going to be fascinating to see is the timetable of David Ojabo when he does get activated. I think that's the big thing that we're waiting for, is how long that takes, whether that's starting on the PUP list and then getting activated from there and where they move on. That remains to be seen. But I think pretty much what you see right now on your screen, not a whole lot's going to change. That's the group that they go with. That's going to be your starters, your second team. It's just a matter of how soon till Ojabo gets on the field. That's the next question to be answered at that inside linebacker and those edge positions there for the Baltimore Ravens. So with that, we'll talk about the offensive line in just a second. But what say you? Who's the player the Ravens should sign? We've been talking about all these cuts that the Ravens made, and in addition to signing Demarcus Robinson over the weekend, with other teams making cuts and free agents becoming available, who comes to mind? Who's somebody that the Ravens should sign? Let me know in the comments section and tell me. Give me a name or two of who the Ravens should look at. All right. Last thing before we go, the offensive line spot. Jones-Smith gets cut at the offensive tackle. Not a huge loss for the Ravens to move on from Jones-Smith. Here is what the offensive line looks like now. Here's the thing. With Jones-Smith, the truth of the matter is that with all the issues that have plagued the Ravens' offensive line, if you couldn't make this team with the amount of chances that you've been given, essentially, with what we've seen from Ronnie Stanley being hurt to Tyler Linderbaum, Daniel Falalele getting injured on Sunday. It looks like he's going to be okay. But even with all that, if you can't make it to this point with all the benefits you've been given, I don't think you're missing much. So it is an area of concern, this offensive line, but this cut, not the end of the world either. So with that, appreciate you joining us here on the Ravens Rundown. A busy news day for your Baltimore Ravens. You know I'm covering it, as always, on Twitter at Tyler Jones Live. We will see you tomorrow here on the Rundown. So long, everybody.